Okay. Hello everybody and welcome to the War Room. This one is for this weekend's heavyweight clash between two relatively young stars in their MMA careers, Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Ciryl Gane. Very interesting one, this one, given the fact that they're, as I said, they're both still quite new to their MMA careers. Jairzinho's 11-1 and Cyryl's 7-0. Having just come off a stoppage over Junior Dos Santos. So these guys are right up near the top of the division, you know, top 10 heavyweights, both very dangerous guys, but still kind of learning on the job as they go. You know, they've both got kickboxing experience, but much like their MMA experience, I mean, probably even a lot more so, Rozenstruik's MMA experience is slightly more than Cyryl's, but his kickboxing experience is vast in comparison. He's had a lot of kickboxing matches, 84, I believe, 84, 85 kickboxing matches. 85, 76 and 8 with 64 knockouts and 12-1 in his MMA career with 10 by knockout and 11 wins. So, you know, clearly a very big puncher. We've seen this in his UFC career so far. Obviously, you know, Rozenstruik coming in, everyone knowing him as a kickboxer, the idea was that they better get him to the ground as quickly as possible. And people have tried, and some have had some success, but some have failed miserably. And others have had a little success, but have, failed in the bigger picture. And we've seen a quick adaptation to his takedown game. He looked far more vulnerable in his early days in the UFC. In his fight against Alistair Overeem, obviously it was almost a 25-minute fight. I believe his stats, I think he stopped 8 of 10 takedowns in that fight. So that's one thing that's really bolstered his takedown defense stat. I believe it sits at 75% now. There were certainly times when he was taken down and nullified on the ground. He's got, you know, good scrambling ability, and much like his striking, he does seem to be rather patient in when he applies it. I mean, that was one of the things that got him through the Arlovsky fight. The Overeem fight, was the fact that he was patient, and the fact that he didn't go in there and just start wailing on Overeem when he was in range. Like, Overeem's very good at kind of covering up and forcing you to run in sand for 60 seconds while he looks like he's hurt, and then he's perfectly fine afterwards and keeps moving around. Rozenstruik recognized this tactic early on, and he wasn't expending his gas tank on wasted punches. Like, he would hit a few shots, but you could see he was pulling the power out of them. And, you know, obviously was taken down, but also was able to get back to his feet and was able to stuff a lot of takedowns, which then, you know, discouraged Overeem from keep clinching him after that point, because, you know, you've got to get close to this guy, and he's got thunder in his fists. On the flip side, you've got Ciryl Gane, who's very, very athletic, high work rate, well-conditioned, very mobile, stance switching kickboxer that looks like he's got so much more experience than his record shows. This is an interesting one for me as well, given the fact that it's at the Apex. Obviously, Gane's last fight against JDS was in the smaller of the octagons as well. And he does well to keep away from people and constantly move laterally and change his angle, change his stance, and you know, like I said, his game looks very much like he's a veteran fighter, even though he doesn't have the same kind of experience as Rozenstruik. But there are definitely lots of facets to his game that could be problematic. So if I'm Gane coming into this one, I know I'm probably going to be moving laterally, and I know that I've probably got the better footwork and conditioning. So I'm going to use that against Rozenstruik as much as possible. And I know that Overeem tried to do this, but I don't think he did it as well. I think Gane can force Rozenstruik to move forward and to follow him a little more, changing his direction, changing his angle, punishing him on the way in, and then being gone before Rozenstruik starts to throw counters. The challenge here, obviously, is that Gane does have to, you know, get close to him at some point. So I think kind of like the rule, if you're in someone's guard, your arms are either always all the way in or all the way out. You know, you're not kind of lingering around waiting for them to get caught with something. That range in this fight for Ciryl Gane is that close range, that punching range. He doesn't want to be standing around in there. There's no point in doing it. I'm not saying that he's not going to be able to take the punches of Rozenstruik, because, you know, the man's got a hell of a neck and shoulders on him, and, you know, he moves very well. He's very athletic. He looks like the kind of guy that will be able to take a shot, even though he's not going to be willing to do it if he doesn't need to. So I think that's something that's going to elongate his career in mixed martial arts as well, but the way he fights. With Rozenstruik on the opposite side, obviously lots of kickboxing experience. He's far more certain in what he wants to do in this fight. I mean, the idea of him coming out and getting this fight to the floor is probably not wise, given the fact that Gane's got submissions on his record as well. Arm triangles, heel hooks. It's not like he's guillotining people when they're trying to take him down. There's a variety to his submission game, and he's also got options of ways to get it down there. That's going to be a challenge for him against Rozenstruik. I think if he mixes his martial arts, instead of going in there to clinch him and try and take him down, like if Gane grabs Rozenstruik, drives him up against the fence and starts working for takedowns, Rozenstruik knows exactly what he's dealing with, so he's going to be much more adept at defending those takedowns and keeping it in his range. If Gane's able to tag and move and kick and move and tag, and then all of a sudden level change as soon as Biggie Boy starts to throw power, I think that transition into the grapple could, the surprise effect could help him with the efficiency of his takedowns and not give Rozenstruik the opportunity to start his takedown defense process. If you're a striker coming into MMA, the first thing you learn is you take down defense, and then you work you get ups, because that's kind of the order in which you're going to face it. You're going to get taken down first. If you don't work your takedown defense and you work your escapes, you're going to be using your escapes because your takedown defense is not working. So you've got to think that the takedown defense of Rozenstruik compared to the grappling escapes is going to be better. So the surprise element of Gane being able to transition into the clinch and take him down quickly, I think will be a benefit to him. And he's a great athlete. He's more than capable of doing that. With Gane's striking style, as I said before, he switches stance a lot, and there's a lot of he's very loose with his guard. He stands quite upright. He's not tucked up and tight, kind of like Overeem was. If he's moving into range, he's moving in behind an armored wall. Gane's not like that. He uses that lead hand as a skirmisher, either stance, but especially when he's southpaw against an orthodox fighter, he likes to grab at their lead hand as a way of tying one of their main weapons up. I always try and explain this as in if you're reaching for an opponent's hand, that can be useful, but it's kind of like coming out of the goal when you're defending a penalty in football or soccer for those watching from America. You can come out of the goal and put yourself closer to the striker, and that cuts down the opportunities of them being able to get around you. But the difference in MMA is that there's lots of ways around you. It's not quite as simple as kicking a ball, past somebody and trying to second guess which way they're going to go. You can close that range down by reaching out for that fist, but you've got to think of all of the other weapons that could come in your direction. So your secondary defense to that has always got to be head movement. In MMA, you can smother the attacker, but you can also move the goal. And if you're not moving the goal, then the attacker's eventually going to get through, especially in the heavyweight division when they've got power like these guys. So I quite like the playful aspect of Gane's style. I think it's something that would work very well over 5 rounds as well, which is not something we've seen him do before. But conditioning-wise, footwork-wise, the efficiency of his movement and the approach to his striking, he could effectively stay on the outside and pepper Rozenstruik and force him to keep walking forward and constantly keep moving and changing angles and directions. And if he finds himself, uncomfortable in that range, or Gane starting to, or Rozenstruik starting to cut him down, then there's the option to clinch. And we saw his elbows in his last fight against JDS. And I think if Gane could nullify that lead leg, slow him down, force Rozenstruik to step on that lead leg, keep chopping it, but be away before the punches start flying. He's slowly putting that water in the basement, as Teddy Atlas always talks about. And then you've got Gane, who's he's basically center of the octagon, kind of waiting for you to come to him, which Gane's smart enough not to do. As far as the stats and experience go, I'm you kind of have to lean towards Rozenstruik just purely based on the amount of fights he's had and the amount of knockouts that he's proven to be able to generate. But we know so little about Ciryl Gane, and we've really not seen him pushed a great deal. Even JDS couldn't push him past the second round, and the only person that's taken him a distance was Tanner Bosa, and Bosa is another one of those those anomaly heavyweights that doesn't move like a heavyweight. He's fast. He's got good footwork. And, Gane still won that fight, but he was up against a much more mobile heavyweight who's also got very good punching power. I don't know as Rozenstruik's got the same kind of movement, but you've got to get close to him to fight the guy. So it's choosing your opportunities if you're Ciryl Gane. If you're Rozenstruik, you kind of got to wait for your opportunity to arrive. The best thing he can do is to maximize his opportunity by taking away most of that movement from Gane. One thing that stood out when Rozenstruik fought Overeem was the returning of kicks. Overeem would throw a kick and Rozenstruik would block it or check it or catch it and sweep it and then return a kick of his own. And going back to the JDS Gane fight, from a southpaw stance, Ciryl was smashing that leg into JDS in several different places. Legs, body, head, very loose, very calm, very agile in his deliveries. It's kind of the kind of kick that he can throw over and over again throughout. So if you can discourage him by countering it with something more powerful, that might be a benefit to Rozenstruik. And it's always about, landing the hands. The amount of experience he's got, the amount of knockouts per percentage of fights he's had, there's an intellect there in delivering knockouts. And I also think that Ciryl Gane's going to be a new kind of challenge for him in MMA. Someone that's, has got a very diverse game, but doesn't stand and trade. He's not willing to stand in range and test power. Ciryl has got a very cool approach for a heavyweight. And I think that, even if he doesn't come through this fight, as far as his future in the heavyweight division goes, he's always going to be an interesting contender because he's so different to a lot of these guys. I'll just quick rattle through UFC stats, but I think I've pretty much covered it. I mean, Cyryl's got a slight reach advantage, 3 inches. They're the same height. Cyryl's average fight time is longer, but obviously Rozenstruik's had a lot of short fights in the UFC. This states them both as orthodox, but we know that Ciryl Gane does switch. And I would imagine Rozenstruik's got some skills and confidence on the other side as well. We just don't see it. We haven't seen it a great deal yet. Strikes landed per minute is higher for Ciryl, as you would imagine. Striking defense is much higher. Rozenstruik's striking defense is 36%, which seems unusually low to me. But, again, Cyryl's all over him with striking stats. He takes he takes 2/3 of the strikes that Rozenstruik's taken and has got a very slightly higher success rate when it comes to striking. The biggest difference, obviously, is the grappling element. Takedown average per 15 minutes. We've got 1.8 from Ciryl, but we've got 2 fights ending in submission. So there are conclusions to those takedowns. Takedown accuracy at 60%, takedown offense at 100%. Again, I don't think Rozenstruik's going to try and take Gane down, but 60% takedown accuracy and the condition that he comes in to be able to keep trying to get the takedown. I think he might be able to influence that stat positively in this fight if he chooses to go in that direction. And, no submissions for Rozenstruik. We'll see what his sub-defense is like. We'll see if Gane's able to threaten him with anything. With neck attacks and leg locks, you've got to think that he can attack every body part. So he might be able to find a way into Rozenstruik's game if he can take him down. And if he does take him down, the recklessness of Rozenstruik getting up might open up some opportunities for him. Really interesting fight. The heavyweight division is electric right now, and unfortunately, some of the older guys like the Oleniks and stuff, they're starting to find their way out as these new young talents are rising through that seem to have lots of exciting physical attributes as well as good skill sets. So this is a really exciting one. Enjoy the fights, and I'll see you next time.